much for joining. My name's Lauren Janish. I'm going to be the moderator for today's session, Managing Stress and Fatigue. Just a housekeeping item to note is that if you have a question that you would like answered, you can type it in the chat, the Q&A chat. That will only be visible to me and to Yoli. And we can answer, or Yoli can answer those the last 10 minutes of the session. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Yoli Orihel is the CEO and founder of Cancer Kinship, whose mission is to empower the cancer community to confidently face the disease through peer mentorship, survivor empowerment, and education-free wigs and community resource navigation provided by caring and compassionate volunteers and staff. So super excited. Thanks so much, Yoli. And I'm going to pass it over to you.
Awesome. We're going to switch screens here. Bear with me. Hopefully technology will be cooperative. Let's see here. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you again for hopping on today. I'm excited to talk about this topic because it has been very relevant in my world, in my life, not just while powering through cancer, but all throughout my entire life's journey. So I'm really eager to make this an engaging workshop for you all and want to encourage questions and dialogue, reactions. And I will do my best to ask questions because I am very long-winded. So anyway, I am the CEO and founder of Cancer Kinship. We're located here in Southern California. I did upload some materials in the platform in case anybody is interested in learning more, and it's just an additional resource for you to put in your tool belt. Let me progress. I am a 15-year cancer survivor. So I was diagnosed in 2017. And 15 years is a very long time. So I hope that gives you a lot of encouragement. I was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer, which I'll talk about my treatment and everything that happened in that first diagnosis year. But a little bit about my professional background. I'm also a nonprofit professional. I've been in the nonprofit sector for 30 plus years. I started when I was 16, grew up in Central California. And post-treatment, I was recruited by my breast specialist, my breast surgeon, to serve as a patient mentor for one-on-one emotional support for her patients. So I did that for many, many years. I think it was like 8 or 9 years before I even thought about starting the nonprofit. So that for me was very fulfilling. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the importance of giving back and volunteering as a way to reduce your stress. But before I talk about stress and all that, I'm going to share a little bit of the story, the backstory. So why I started Cancer Kinship and why I'm here today is that I'm really passionate about providing tips and tools to the cancer community on how to thrive after diagnosis. Excuse me. For me, cancer has been a part of my vocabulary since I could remember. My mom was diagnosed in 1983 when I was just a teeny tiny kiddo. And fast forward, she passed away in 1986 when I was just 10 years old of metastatic cancer that spread to her brain. And keep in mind, this was so many years ago when they didn't have a lot of treatment options. They didn't really know a lot about metastatic cancer. And my mom actually had a lot of barriers that prevented her from getting adequate care. We had some language barriers. We were a farmer family. My father was a farm worker in Central California, so under-resourced, underinsured, not many physicians or specialists in that area. So, all that impacts your ability to survive cancer. And then fast forward, I'm the youngest of 7. My second youngest sibling, Elvia, was diagnosed with metastatic cancer. And she also had a lot of barriers, mostly related to external factors like domestic violence that we didn't know she was dealing with. She was also developmentally disabled, so all these big barriers that were preventing her from getting the proper care that she needed. And so these are my why, my mom and my sister, and of course my own cancer story. But when I lost my sister is when my life went dark and really created a lot of moments of introspection and looking at, what did I need as a patient, exploring what are the needs out there. What did I need as a cancer survivor, even today, 15 years later? And what do I need as a care provider? Because I was taking care of my sister. We all take care of my mom. What did I learn from the patients that I was mentoring year over year? What does our community need? All of you all need. We all need to come up with solutions together. But in order to do that, we all need to learn from each other to identify these gaps. So cancer kinship really does exist to serve a very unique population. We're really focused on the cancer survivorship crew, all of you. And we have many programs. So I uploaded our documents into the platform, but I'm not going to talk about cancer kinship today. What I really want to do is rewind to the day of my diagnosis and what was happening in my life that when I was diagnosed. So I was 31. I had just moved to Southern California, landed a job at the YMCA running a $14 million capital campaign, trying to raise some money, working really, really hard. And in my home, I was the only breadwinner. And I just got guardianship of my nephews, an 11 and 12-year-old boys, 2 boys. So I became an instant mom a few months before my diagnosis. And I was also a care provider for my brother. So absent cancer, life was already very stressful, right? As it is for many, many of you. So when I heard the words, "you have cancer," I panicked. I was so scared. And I always talk about that day being the day that the line was drawn across the sand of my life before cancer and my life after cancer. But that day, I really did panic. I thought immediately about my mom. I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to die? Like, I was just so scared. And obviously stress levels went up. And then the fear of how I was going to power through the next year, knowing that I was going to have to go through treatment and surgery, was very hard for me. Excuse me. And the hardest part for me were these very isolating comments that were being said to me that were all true. I believe all these comments to be true of all our loved ones. Say this to cancer patients when they are first diagnosed and they hear about your diagnosis, like, oh my gosh, you're so strong, you're so courageous, you're so brave. Like, yes, we are all those things. But guess what, you guys? I was also scared. I was worried. I was stressed. I felt like the rug got pulled out from under me. So many emotions that we're going through, but I couldn't verbalize that to the folks that were around me because they kept saying, I'm so strong, I'm so courageous, I'm brave. Very isolating feeling. I'm sure some of you can relate. And if you can relate, you can feel free to put that in the chat. But that was my reality. It's like, okay, I'm freaked out. What am I going to do? How am I going to even bring money in to feed my family, new family, my 2 boys, right? So really, I mean, the levels of stress go up and down in life with or without cancer. But when you're going through cancer, it is over the top. So my hope today is to really provide you with some practical tips. I'm going to do a lot of storytelling in this workshop today of what I did to manage stress. But beyond managing stress, what did I do to re-engage back into life in a very meaningful way? And what I did to combat fatigue, because the cancer treatments that I had, the surgeries that I had were very tiring. I was just so exhausted all the time. I mean, for those of you just gone through radiation or going through radiation, I mean, the biggest complaint that a cancer patient has from radiation, of course, is fatigue. So, you know, what did I do to manage the fatigue, high levels of fatigue? And overall, what did I do to make my life better? And we are going to have a Q&A at the end. So feel free to ask questions and we're going to get to all those questions. But before we do, I do want to touch on what is stress? What is fatigue? And I did a little research and try to find some definitions for you. So this is what I found. Stress is the response to external pressures, the outside pressures and demands, like in my life, the demands of running a household with 2 new kiddos in my home. Fatigue is a state of extreme tiredness resulting from physical, mental, or emotional exertion. When I think about fatigue, I always tell people it's like when I'm stupid tired. Like, I can't even describe that any better. I'm stupid tired right now. I'm making a lot of mistakes. I can't even think straight. I don't even want to open my eyes right now. Even my hair hurts, right? And while stress contributes to feelings of fatigue, right? The more you stress, the more tired you can be. It wears you out. It can also actually happen independent of stress. So, and for cancer patients, that the effects of cancer treatment also very much mirror stress and fatigue. So we want to make sure that we're being mindful of our emotions, how we're feeling. And I'm going to give some tips on what helped me kind of keep track of all that. But when you think about long-term health outcomes and you think about the quality of life for us as cancer survivors, we are living much, much, much longer lives. So if we don't do what we can to manage stress and fatigue, then the quality of life will be deeply impacted. And my hope, even for me personally, I want to have the best life ever after a cancer battle. I've gone through hell. My body's still recovering 15 years later. I don't want to be sad. I don't want to be tired. And if I do feel those things, what am I doing to overcome them? Because we can overcome them. So I hope that this is encouraging for you. All right, so let's talk a little bit about stress and the effects, okay? So I'm just going to read the screen here and feel free to chime in if you have any thoughts. So stress is a natural, psychological, and physiological response to external pressures, as known as stressors. And there are positive and negative stressors. Negative stress is called distress. Common stressors include work, relationship issues, financial concerns, academic pressures, significant life changes. Feel free to put in the chat what stresses you out the most. I'm curious. For me, in that case, when I first got diagnosed, it was the fear of how I was going to take care of my family, right? How was I going to keep working while going through treatment? There were so many unknowns. I didn't know if I'd even have the energy to go to work. Or if I'd even have my job, right? After going through taking so much time off. So anyway, there are a lot of stresses that we all go through. So what happens to your body, and I'm learning more and more, I'm not an expert in this topic, but there are so many incredible podcasts and reading material out there that we all have access to that talks about what happens to your body when your body releases these stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline that's triggered when you're going through high levels of stress, and how that impacts your body and your body's ability to keep fighting disease. So it's super important for us to get a handle on these external stressors and find ways for our bodies to bounce back, to cope when we do have stressors, because sometimes they're external. We can't do anything about them, right? Especially cancer warriors. You know, we stress out when we're going to go and get that MRI, right? We were freaking out. We have this fight or flight, these cortisol pumping through our blood. We get scared. So what are we doing to cope? And that's really my hope today, is to share some coping strategies. And a lot of emotional symptoms come from having high levels of stress. And sometimes they surface years later after you're on the other side of treatment and things quiet down, right? When I talk to my clients and have a lot of conversations, a lot of heart-to-heart conversations with clients who have had several years of survivorship under their belt, the thing that comes up the most are feelings of depression, anxiety, a lot of fear, and fear of recurrence, actually, now that they're on the other side of it. And, you know, what I always encourage is to address mental health, you know, to have conversations with your doctors, seek mental health support services. And there are a lot of cool resources out there that can help you kind of get a handle on your mental health challenges while you're at home. Because I tell people there are ways for you to take control back, and things that you can do at home to help bring those stress levels down and help you address the emotional impact of cancer that we feel on a daily basis. Now, physical symptoms also happen. Like for me, I get heart palpitations when I'm stressed out and extremely tired. I have indicators that tell me when I need to slow down and maybe take a nap. For me, it's actually, I feel the tingling in my hands. It feels the same as I did when I was going through treatment. Here I am 15 years later, like, whoa, I feel the weird numb tingling. I need to slow down for a bit. I break out in hives. You know, so our bodies do different things. Sometimes it's a racing heart rate and a bad headache. My best friend, who's also a cancer survivor, she can't go to the bathroom for like 3 days. You know, so there are things that our body does when we're super stressed out and tired. Also, cognitively, I forget things, right? I say I'm stupid tired. I feel like I'm making a lot of mistakes. Right? I can't function right. I was like, I'm too tired to even think about or even make a decision right now. So it does deeply impact us in a very meaningful way. And then, of course, there's depleted energy where, you know, there's different types of fatigue. I've actually experienced good fatigue. You know, like when I go for a run, that's good fatigue. You know, our bodies are still recovering from that physical exertion. But when you have the negative, I mean, that really knocks you out and actually can knock you out for a long time. So I always tell clients, when you're experiencing extreme fatigue, I want to encourage you to start logging how you're feeling and how often you're feeling like you can't get out of bed. Because sometimes the effects of cancer treatment very much mirrors depression, anxiety, or it mirrors, you know, the fatigue symptoms of just being extremely tired. And we can't really differentiate if it's caused from the treatment or surgery, if we're recovering, our bodies are still healing. Are we depressed, or is it something else? So I want to encourage you all that as you're navigating through life after cancer and you're feeling symptoms of extreme fatigue or high stress levels, start logging throughout the day. Like, how many days did you feel like you couldn't get out of bed? And then have a conversation with your doctor about it. Because there may be some other things going on with your body that can be addressed with medical assistance. But we can go on and on about this. So what else here? I already touched on that. So, you know, like I said, stupid, tired, that's how I feel. But it really can impact deeply your productivity. And if you're trying to get back to work, if you're a parent trying to get back to your day-to-day activities and try to keep up with your kiddos, it's going to be important for you to get a handle on your fatigue. And then here, like I mentioned before, for me, it was very important for me to get a handle on my stress levels and fatigue, because I just wanted to have a better life. After everything I went through, I wanted to make sure that I can bring joy back into my life, that I had energy to do the stuff that I wanted to do, that my body was strong enough, kind of keep going. And that alone would be when I reached the point where I felt like I was feeling like I had more energy, then I felt like I was succeeding at life and thriving at life. But it did take a very long time to get there. Let's see here. Sorry, I'm just kind of going through my slides here. I did touch on anxiety, fear, and depression. Again, these are symptoms that a lot of our cancer survivor, cancer warriors feel when things kind of slow down. This is where things start to process and things start to surface again. So just kind of be mindful of that. You know, are you feeling anxiety a lot? You know, are you start logging these symptoms over and over just to see, you know, what are those trends? I'm a data geek, so I love tracking everything. And I love looking at trends. Like, okay, I felt heart palpitations. I felt feelings of anxiety, heightened levels of anxiety when I have my MRIs or my doctor appointments are coming up. So what am I doing to cope with that every time because I have to keep going to the doctor. There's no way around that. And the thing is that when you start getting a handle on your stress and your fatigue levels, then the likelihood of you to continue with vigilance, long-term vigilance, is going to be high. You're going to be able to manage your health better, right? You're going to be able to manage your relationships better. You're going to be able to do better at work, at home. There are a lot of benefits to addressing stress and fatigue. All right, I'm going to fast forward just a little bit because I feel like I'm behind. So fast forward. It took me a long time to get to this place. And I have 15 years under my belt after stage 3 cancer diagnosis. But the things that I knew that I wanted to get to when I was diagnosed was really around active living, because before cancer, I had a lot of energy. I still have a lot of energy. People say I show up like a tornado in their lives, and that's just kind of the way I'm wired. But for me, the way I feel like I am thriving is when I'm out hiking. I love jujitsu. I haven't done it in a while, but I love it, love it, love it. I actually took up skydiving. This was a hobby that I did after cancer treatment. So I share these photos here just to kind of give you a snapshot of what thriving as a cancer warrior looks like for me, but I know that it's over the top. And I don't expect everybody to get here. But my hope is by showing this, it gives you encouragement that you too can get to a point where you feel like you're thriving, whatever that is for you. But the only way that I can get to that point was to handle the following thing. The main thing that I did right out the gate when I was going through treatment, and let me back up just a little bit. When I was diagnosed at 31, I had 3 huge tumors in my left breast that had already spilled into the lymph nodes. And the doctors told, and I have BRCA1. So I had the breast cancer gene, my risk for recurrence were extremely high. And so the doctor suggested that we tackle it with chemo first. So I had 8 rounds of chemo, and then followed by a double mastectomy. And then I waited about a month, had 35 rounds of radiation. So 5 days a week for 7 weeks. And then I paused for about 5 months to heal. And then I started the year-long process of reconstruction. And I had a lat flap reconstruction. I used my back skin and muscle to reconstruct my left breast because I had a lot of radiated tissue a lot of scar tissue from radiation that wouldn't expand. So we used the skin and the tissue and the muscle from the back to help with the expansion. Just that alone, hearing myself say all those things, I'm like, holy moly, like it was an exhausting year and a half. And right out the gate, the first 4 chemos knocked me on my butt. I was fine the first 2. And then chemo number 3 came, and I started feeling a lot of pain, a lot of inflammation, joint pain. I said even my hair hurt, which is a joke because I didn't have hair at that time. But it was such a hard time. And I had a dear friend tell me, Yoli, what are you doing? Go see a nutritionist to help get a handle on your food because what you're eating is crap. And she was right. I was eating a lot of high salted foods because that's the only thing I could taste. I didn't want to eat a lot of greens, although later I became obsessed with cucumbers for some reason, but I wasn't eating the proper food. Therefore, my energy levels were going down. My body hurt all the time. The crap that I was eating actually increased inflammation. So I did have a lot of joint pain, and like my hips hurt, my elbow, like everything just hurt. I was so achy. Then I went and sought out nutrition support. And this doctor rocked my world. And he gave me specific meals to eat. He increased my hydration significantly. I wasn't drinking enough water. I thought I was, but I wasn't. And water tasted awful, right? So he's like, why don't you cut up some cucumbers, throw a little bit of salt. I added strawberries when I could, or a little lemon juice, anything I could do to change the flavor of that water. But the main point was to increase the water that I drank. And he gave me a lot of good proteins to eat. And whatever I couldn't eat, then I put it in a shake and I drank it. But he said, I want you to take this protocol that I just created for you to your doctor and make sure that he's okay with everything I'm suggesting here. And he did give me a lot of supplements to take as well. I was low on my B vitamins. I needed potassium. I needed a lot of things. And that was all based on my blood work. So I'm sharing this with you so that you can, if you do seek out nutrition support, make sure that they, get the proper clearance from a doctor to pursue any kind of supplementation or any kind of nutrition changes. There are some foods that don't go well with your medications. I want you to be mindful of that. But the changes that I made in my diet rocked my world in such a way that my energy levels went up significantly and my pain levels went down significantly, to the point where my last 2 chemos, I did not have to take any kind of pain medication at all. And before that, I was taking pain medication around the clock. This is 15 years ago when they were giving out pain medication a lot more than they are now. But nutrition was everything for me. So I maintained good nutrition all throughout the rest of my treatment, all into my recovery and my surgery recovery. 15 years later, I am still implementing the strategies, the protocols that were given to me by my doctor to change my nutrition and how I was feeding myself. So nutrition was number 1 game changer for me during chemotherapy. Then, as soon as I could and I was able to, I got moving. And for me, just getting up and going to the mailbox was a huge win for me because my body hurt so much in the very beginning. And I started walking more. And even though I was tired, I forced myself to get up and walk. Even when I couldn't go outside because I was awake in the middle of the night, thank you, steroids, for keeping me up all night. I walked laps in my living room just to move and get up off that couch, because I realized the more I sat on my couch or the more I laid in bed, the more my back hurt, the more my my joints hurt, the more I ached. When I moved, I felt better. So little wins, right? The little steps turn into bigger steps and turn into hikes and turn into working out at the gym if you're up for it, right? That's exactly what happened to me. Getting up again, going to the mailbox was a huge win for me. But then when I was about 2 months post-treatment, I decided to join a gym only because I wanted to walk on a treadmill and get out of my home. So I started walking on the treadmill, and then I added a little increase, like I had incline, right? A little bit of resistance. And little by little, I started walking and walking more and walking more. And then one day I decided to do a half marathon and train for that. It took me a couple of years, but I had a goal in mind that I wanted to accomplish. So the little steps go far, you guys. So I want to encourage you all to come up with some ways in which you can move. Sometimes moving for me was cooking in the kitchen, throwing on some music, and having a little dance party in my kitchen with my kiddos. Sometimes it was cleaning or vacuuming my home when I had the energy to do it, having some music on and shaking my booty as I am sitting there vacuuming and cleaning my home. Movement matters. So I want to encourage you all to find a way in which you could move. And if you can move with your community, find a couple people to walk with you and be your accountability partner, even better. And what I realized, I know sounds like, oh gosh, I don't even have the energy to get up out of bed. How the heck am I going to move? How am I going to walk a block? Or how am I going to walk half a mile? How am I going to walk? How am I going to get in this, Susan G. Komen walk for, what is it called? It used to be called Race for the Cure. It's called something else now. How am I going to do that 5K? You can do it. I've seen amazing cancer warriors going through treatment, walking down that 5K. So again, get your doctor to clear it. But once he does or she does, get out there and move. Okay, so this is where goal setting comes into play. And this helped me a lot. I am one of those people that has to see the goals on the wall every day. Otherwise, I'm going to forget. Life is too busy and I have too much going on and too much in my brain to even remember what my goals are. But if I write them down and I see them every day on a whiteboard or a flip chart paper on my wall, or even on my mirror, I can write something on my mirror, you will go far. So goal setting was important for me. After I was done with my reconstruction surgery and I was healing, and the doctor was telling me to do the walk, crawl up the wall exercise to stretch out your arms. In my head, I'm thinking, gosh, if I could just do one push-up, I would be happy. Because everything hurt. My breast, my newly reconstructed breast hurt, my chest hurt. I had no strength in my arms. How would I ever get to do a push-up? I just wanted to do one. That's what I started with. And then when I was able to finally do one push-up, I'm like, I just want to do 5. And now I want to do 10. And a lot of cancer centers nowadays have a gym in their facility somewhere, or have a way or folks to guide you. So I would ask, if you don't have access to a gym or don't know of anywhere you can go work out, maybe ask your nurse navigator or your chemo nurse. By the way, the chemo nurses are amazing. They could be your strongest advocate, can kick you in the pants and give you the motivation you need to get going and get moving. Mine was one of those. And I asked my nurse navigator and my chemo nurse a lot of questions about working out. I'm like, what have you seen? What have people done? And they will tell you stories that will give you a lot of motivation. So anyway, I asked my cancer center to help me with my range of motion because I did not want to have limitations. I knew that if I didn't stretch and I didn't do the proper exercises, I would have limitations. I didn't want to have lymphedema. I started doing all the lymphedema, self-massaging. I did seek out a lot of support from the cancer center to give me a lot of fascia release and massage to really dig into my scar tissue. I had a lot of challenges with scar tissue. So my cancer center staff were able to do the massages and help with the stretching. And in their gym is really where I started training for these much loftier goals that I had, my physical activity goals, like running a half marathon and eventually even skydiving. In fact, they looked at me like I was crazy. And I told them, okay, my goal this coming, not this year, next year, is to land my own parachute. And the only way I can do that is by carrying this 35-pound pack on my back and being able to pull down like 30 pounds of weight hold it and then bring it down. So basically it's like a lat pull down, right? Lat pull down. So anyway, I had these ridiculous, crazy goals and that were fun for me, but also gave me a lot of motivation. Whether or not I could actually reach is a whole other thing, but it gave me something to work towards. And my cancer center staff were amazing in helping me develop goals, little incremental goals that I could just become more stronger and stronger every day. And then from there, I can hopefully land my own parachute one day, right? So I'm telling you all this because these big lofty goals are obtainable. You can get there and they don't have to be big. Again, getting up and walking to your mailbox can be one amazing goal. It's like, holy moly, I was able to finally get my own mail today. So, but write it down. I want to encourage you to write it down, make it time specific. And if you have to adjust that time frame, so be it, right? Nobody's holding it to you but you. But set it down and make sure that you have, or write it down, make sure that it's that you can, I have this little goal setting smart goal thing here. Make sure that it's very specific for you. And then from here, you can actually make little micro goals, right? So it's like, okay, if I want to land my own parachute, for example, then I'm actually going to sign up for a gym, or I'm going to ask my cancer center to help me. You know, I'm going to set up goals. I'm going to create a schedule. Like, so it's either these small goals to get you there. All that helps. All that creates a structure that you can look at and lean on to get you going and get you on from one goal to the next one to the next one. But anyway, active living is super important. All right, this is a big issue for me. Insomnia was a big issue for me. Getting a handle on my sleep was a big issue for me. And I honestly think that I had issues with my sleep before cancer and I just didn't know it, because being tired and having trouble sleeping became a normal thing for me even before cancer. And so what I did, and what I do want to recommend that you do again, is logging your sleep patterns. There are a lot of cool phone apps now. Like I have Apple iPhone. So my iPhone has a health app that I use to track my sleep and see how much deep sleep I'm getting, how much REM sleep I'm getting, what are my wake times? Am I waking up in the middle of the night? What does that look like? And I even downloaded a snoring app on my phone. And this is why. I was at my father's home visiting one day, and he has a tiny little home. So I was crashed out on his couch. My brother happened to be walking by in the middle of the night to go to the restroom, and he heard me sleeping. And the next day he's like, "What the heck is going on with you in your sleep?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" This just happened last year, by the way. And he's like, "You sound like you're desperate for air when you're sleeping, like super fast, shallow breath, like you're not getting enough air." I'm like, what are you talking about? I downloaded the snoring app. I was mortified when I heard. Like, I felt like I was dying. I sounded like I was dying. Fast, narrow or shallow breaths, not enough air was coming into my lung. That explained why I would wake up every morning with a headache. I thought I just needed my caffeine fix in the morning. Turns out, after going through a sleep study, talking to my doctor about it and showing him my recording, I actually have a thing called hypoxia, where my O2 levels, my oxygen levels, dropped down as low as 72% from 100. And I had 33 sleep disturbances per hour. Every other minute, my brain was telling my lungs to breathe because I wasn't getting enough oxygen. So I truly did have a sleeping disorder that, if it went unaddressed, would result in disease, without a doubt. Heart disease. I mean, so many different diseases could have contributed to cancer. You never know. My body was not recovering at night. So if you're having trouble sleeping, staying asleep, you keep waking up, have insomnia, can't figure out what's going on with your sleep, wake up super tired, talk to your doctor about it. And again, log what's happening, save it on your phone apps. There's so many cool apps to help you. A lot of tools are available to do this now. So getting a handle on your sleep is a very big deal. And it will help improve your immune system. That will help you keep fighting cancer. So now I do have to sleep with the CPAP machine. I tell people I'm going to sleep like a baby, but I'm going to be single forever. And I make a joke about it. Honestly, I don't care what I look like, how uncomfortable it may be. I've actually gotten used to it. I appreciate this machine that pushes air into my lungs every single night. The first night I slept with it, And keep in mind, I was only sleeping about 4 hours a night straight. Actually, it wasn't even straight. It was broken sleep, 4 hours, 5 hours. Then I'd get frustrated. I just wake up and stay up. First night I slept 7 hours. Second night I slept 10 and a half hours straight without waking up. And I recorded myself quiet the whole night. So anyway, sleep is a big deal, you guys. And a lot of cancer patients have issues with sleep. A lot of it has to do with medication, right? A lot of it has to do with the stress, the fear we have. We can't turn off our brains. Like the monkey brain is happening. I can't turn off my brain. There are a lot of really cool apps out there that'll help you, like guided meditation for sleep. Or there are a lot of background, like white noise that you can turn on. I have to have a fan on. I'm always hot. So having a fan on and having maybe some low tone music or some beats can help me get into that relaxed state where I can actually fall asleep is very helpful. A lot of tools out there. So speaking of monkey brain, I always tell people that there are a lot of tools, again, that you can do to regain your control back. For me, I don't do as much meditation as I probably should, but the way I define meditation is really in prayer. I'm a faithful Christian woman. I pray a lot. I have a wonderful relationship with the Lord. I have lots of conversations with the Lord. And sometimes I'll just read my Bible and just meditate on it and think about it and stay in this deep state of prayer. And I feel a lot of connection with God when I do that, and can slow down just enough to have that conversation or, just have that one-on-one time with God. But a lot of people use guided meditation tools online. If you go on YouTube and just type in guided meditation, you're going to find so many amazing tools. There are a lot of readings also. You can go online and there are a lot of websites that have a lot of information on how to meditate. The whole idea is to carve out time and be consistent with it on shutting down your mind, shutting off everything, shut off your phone, shut off your TV, have this quiet time set aside. If you have a room or a place in your home where you can go away from everyone, do it. And that's a good way to bring down your stress levels, your hormone levels in your body, your cortisol levels, and just shut off your mind. It's a time to recoup and make time for yourself, which ends up being a beautiful thing. And I struggle with meditation big time because I am very active. Like my mind is always on the go. And now I'm running an organization. And, so my mind is constantly on, how to grow the org, what our partners and what our clients need. Just a lot is happening in my mind, as I'm sure the same for all of you. So I struggle with turning off my brain. And the thing that has helped me a lot is realizing that my mind is going to wander when I'm in this meditative state. I do that even when I'm reading my Bible and I'm praying. I'm like, oh gosh, I forgot to pay that bill. Or, oh gosh, I need to go get this at the grocery store. I'm like, oh, I realized I just wandered. Get back to quiet, get back to being still. So I added a couple tips here. By the way, I uploaded the PDF version of this presentation onto the app or onto the platform. So you can download this. So if you want to take the time to see these tips, these little micro meditation tips. There's also a cool podcast that I listen to. It's called Huberman Lab. And the host is he's a professor at Stanford School of Medicine. He studies neuroscience, and he talks a lot about the importance of this thing called non-sleep deep rest that has a lot to do with breath work and shutting down your mind. And he talks a lot about managing your stress and fatigue and the body's response to stress that I think are very helpful. So if you have a chance, check out Huberman Lab. He's amazing, so informative, has amazing guests on his podcast. Okay, and how much time do I have? Just want to do a time check. How am I doing? Sorry, I can't see y'all, Lauren.
You have about 20 minutes.
Awesome. Actually, I'm getting close to the end here, but we can chat all you want after I'm done with the presentation. Okay. So another way that I was able to combat my own stress related specifically to cancer and cancer survivorship that had a close relation to my fatigue and really deeply impacted my fatigue was this whole idea of building a community. Like I said in the very beginning, cancer can be very isolating, especially when you don't have the ability to truly share the impact that cancer has had on your life and on your mind and on your energy level and how you feel about your body, how your body feels. So for me, I had a big aha moment when I finally did find my person. And when I talk about my person, this person is actually a cancer survivor herself. And when I met her, I was about 1 year post-treatment, and I had been going to a few cancer support groups at my cancer center. There's one general cancer support group that I went to. The average age group of that support group was probably around 60, I want to guess. And here I was 31 years old, and the things that they were talking about were not relatable for me. And the things I wanted to bring up and talk about would probably blow their mind. Although that's just me making an assumption. I'm sure they could have contributed really well to the conversation. But anyway, I just didn't feel comfortable. And I ended up going to a cancer genetics info session one day. And next to me sat this gal about my age. Didn't know anything about her, but in the introduction realized that we had the same doctor. She was stage 2 breast cancer. I'm stage 3. She's BRCA 2, I'm BRCA 1. So there are some things that were different, but mostly a lot of similarities. And somebody said something so funny during the intro, or I can't remember what was said, but it made her laugh really loudly. It was a ridiculously loud, funny laugh that made me laugh. And I thought immediately, oh, I need to have this gal on my left just because her laugh alone is going to make me crack up, right? So I introduced myself. We started chatting. And because we had this shared experience, we were like each other's person. And there are times where she can see the look on my face and she'll know something's wrong. Or I can tell her, hey, I'm on my way to see Dr. Brown, my gynecologic oncologist. And she'll know exactly what I'm going to go through that day and will check in on me and how was that, what happened, well, so she just basically could finish my sentences and knew my thought. Like we just knew each other so well in that way that I immediately could feel my stress levels decrease when she was in my world. And hopefully that I created the same kind of response to her when I was around her, because she got me. So my encouragement to you, first of all, I'm very encouraged that you're here in the first place, because by participating in organizations like this organization and by being in groups like this, even though we're remote, you're still building your community here. You're going to meet people that you have a shared lived experience. Perhaps, there are moms that can connect with moms. Perhaps there are, different cancer types that are similar, or treatment plans that are similar. Find that one thing that brings you, has that commonality, and come together. Introduce yourself, get out of your comfort zone and send a message. Look at the chat right here, by the way. We have 42 chat messages. People introduce themselves. If you see somebody that said, hey, I had the same type of cancer, stage of cancer, and I live in this area, send them a private message right now and say, hey, is there any way we can exchange phone number or email or whatever and connect? I would love to have coffee with you, or even a virtual coffee. Can we just connect? But I do want to encourage you to build that tribe. You're going to need each other. And the further along you get, the more people think that it's life as usual for all of us cancer warriors, that our lives are going to get back to normal, and it's like out of sight, out of mind. We look healthy. People look at me, they have no idea that I was a bald, sick person 15 years ago. No clue. People that I work closely with, sometimes cancer doesn't come into the conversation anymore. They had no idea that I went through it. So, and that alone could be very isolating, right? So, finding your person or your group of people, go to a support group if you can, helps you cope with the stress that you have as a cancer survivor, and you don't feel so alone. And for me, so my best friend also became a skydiver. We started skydiving together. So she was on me about training. We decided to run a half marathon together. She would call me and say, did you run today? Or did you at least get up and walk? How many miles did you get in today? And I would call her and do the same thing. Or if I wasn't feeling up for it, I'm like, I'm having a really down day today. Guess what? She would show up at my door with a funny movie and some food and just be here for me. So we all need those people. So do what you can to start building your own tribe. Some people aren't comfortable introducing themselves. So sometimes you have to be the proactive one to get out there and build your tribe for yourself. So get out of your comfort zone, get to know people. And if you are struggling and finding that person, your chemo nurse or your nursing staff, your team will know somebody like, hey, do you know somebody who's had a similar cancer as mine? I'd like to meet that person. Is there any way you can do an introduction? Or can you give them my phone number? I would love to just pick their brain. Maybe somebody that has a few years ahead of you. By the way, you can always contact me. My contact will be at the end of this presentation. So if you want to connect after the fact, I'd be happy to chat with you and we can have a post workshop conversation, maybe pull a group together. Okay. I can be your person too. All right. So this is also a biggie one for me. The day of my diagnosis was actually a day that I volunteered for my church. And I didn't think that I would have it in me to get my family together, drive down to the church and volunteer that day. But I did it anyway, not because I knew there would be a benefit to it. It's because my two boys needed to go and be a part of this bigger group. We had made a commitment, so we went. And at the end of that volunteer session, even though it was the darkest day of my life up to that point, I felt better and I felt lighter in my heart. So I got curious about volunteering, the health benefits of volunteering, and I found this really cool slide, but there are a lot of wonderful benefits to volunteering. More than anything, it gives you a sense of purpose, right? And a sense of usefulness. Sometimes when you go through cancer, you feel like you're not good for anything. There are days where you're just like, ugh, I don't even have it in me to get up and brush my teeth. How can I show up for other people right now? But if you get up and do something for someone else, it could be something as simple as picking up the phone and checking in on your brother or sister or your parents or your friend. Like, hey, I just want to call and check on you. How are you doing today? Right? Make it about somebody else. That's going to actually help you a ton. And you're going to feel so good in your heart. So anyway, this little slide here says volunteering reduces the body's stress levels and releases endorphins, which is a painkiller. A lot of cancer patients deal with pain, recurring pain, sustained pain all the time, don't feel well, things hurt. But these endorphins, these beautiful stress relief endorphins, float around your body that help you feel a lot better. There are a lot of surveys that happen when I have volunteer opportunities for my clients. I do have post-volunteer surveys, and none of them have ever come back saying, I wish I never volunteered. People feel good when they can be of service to others. And it says here, regular volunteers were 10 times more likely to be in good health than people who did not volunteer. Now, this is important for us that are trying to keep cancer away after having been diagnosed, right? Survivors, one of our biggest goals is to keep cancer away. How do we reduce recurrence risk so we don't ever have to hear the words, you have cancer again, right? So volunteering can do this for you. I did have the wonderful benefit of being a mentor for 8 years. And actually a lot longer now if you include the 5 years with Cancer Kinship. But I pretty much have been mentoring since day one post-treatment as a survivor. And the way that all actually went down is that I got a phone call one day from my breast surgeon. And she saw that I had a pretty positive outlook on life. And I think it's really more like my demeanor. It's kind of how I'm wired. But because I had a good outlook and actually had a good outcome, when I got the pathology report back from the after surgery, after my double mastectomy, it said that I had complete response to treatment. So my cancer tumor shrunk down. I couldn't even feel anything the day of my surgery before going in. Although when I woke up that day, I realized I had no breasts. It's like, thank you, Jesus. My breasts are gone. I was so happy my breasts are gone and felt such a relief, because like, okay, I did everything I could to minimize my risk. But anyway, so my doctor called me and she said, I have this patient who's about your age and she's really struggling to make a decision about her treatment, or I'm sorry, a decision about her surgery to the point where she can't decide, like she can't make a decision. And she has advanced stage cancer, stage 3, just like you. Can you just tell her your story? I said, sure. So I met her for coffee. Lots of laughter, lots of crying, lots of questions, a lot of questions I couldn't answer. I'm not a doctor, but I could share my story, right? I can tell her what helped me, what didn't help me, what I was scared of. And it was also a listening ear, right? Without judgment. And the next day, my breast surgeon called me and she's like, what in the world did you tell her? Because she's ready to rock and roll. She's ready to move forward. I said, nothing. I just shared my story. We just talked. And then she's like, well, that conversation may have just saved her life. And we left it at that. And then a couple months later, she's like, I have another patient and I have another patient. So nowadays, there are a lot more organizations that are creating opportunities for you to be a mentor. One is our organization. We're getting ready to relaunch a peer mentorship program called Cancer Connections, where our hope is to get folks who are, or recruit folks who have a lived experience with cancer, people that have battled cancer like you all here, to be able to share your story with somebody else and answer questions, offer tips and tools, right? It's not going to work for everybody. What I'm offering today may not work for you. I'm sure there aren't a lot of people on this call that want to jump from planes. But my encouragement to you is to find those groups where you can actually serve and be of purpose. There are a lot of cancer centers and universities that want participants in focus groups where you can just share your feedback. Like right now, I partnered with UCLA, and they are developing a video game to teach cancer patients or to teach the community on insurance literacy. And we're really focusing on young cancer survivors, people that were diagnosed between the ages of 18 and 39. And so, just being able to share your experience with that group to develop a tool that can help people later, there are a lot of those opportunities. So if you need help finding these opportunities, again, reach out to me, reach out to any of the crew from this organization here and this workshop here. Lean on each other. I'm sure you all have wonderful tips and tools to share with one another, but find ways to give back. And trust me, this will help you bring down your fatigue, your stress, energize you. It'll energize you and you'll feel healthier and hopefully will be thriving after your diagnosis. And if you find, if my hope is you're tracking and you're logging and paying attention, if you find that the feelings of stress and super high fatigue, a lot of fatigue does not go away, have a conversation with your doctor. There could be a lot of things happening in your body that may be causing things, including hormone imbalances. You could be deficient in vitamins. Maybe you're not eating the right foods, right? You need nutrition support. Maybe it's mental health, right? Maybe you're actually going through a depression and really could benefit from mental health support, right? Some counseling. But going through cancer is probably one of the most stressful things anybody could ever go through. And expecting us to go back as life as usual, like as if it never happened, it's impossible, right? I talk about that line in the sand, the day, life before and life after. Can't go back to who we were back then, but we can certainly find ways to thrive after our diagnosis. I've done it. I still struggle. I still cry. It happens every day. I was talking to Lauren earlier about PTSD, right? They get triggered. I get triggered all the time. I'm driving by the imaging center where I got that diagnosis. I'll start crying and I didn't even look at the imaging center and I'll cry. It's okay. But if I can't stop crying, that's a problem. And that's something that can be addressed. So anyway, I'll leave you with this. There are many benefits that you can also gain from being in this high stress and fatigue. And the biggest thing that can come from it is really this ability to self-reflect, right? How are you responding to high stress situations? How did you respond to that day that when you heard you have cancer? Or how are you handling it now? Are you lashing out at your family? Are you hard on yourself? Do you have a lot of negative self-talk? Right? And the reason why I think this is important is because this is also an opportunity to grow from it, right? If you don't like the person you're becoming when you're lashing out at family because you're tired or you're stressed out, then what can you do to change it, right? It can be very empowering when you step for a moment and be like, and just let it be. It's like, okay, I panicked and I started crying and I said, oh my gosh, I don't want to die like my mom when I got diagnosed, that day of diagnosis. And I shut everybody out. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I cried and I drove like that. What are some things that I could have done differently, or things that I can learn from myself to make myself a better person and handle stress a lot differently? So anyway, those are just my thoughts, my 2 cents. I hope this is all very helpful information for you. I am here to support you, Lauren, the team, everybody's here to support you. And my hope is that you all are here to support each other too. I'll open the floor for questions. Lauren, I'll lean on you for this part.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Yoli. Yeah, so we'll open everything up, the Q&A, and I will go ahead and ask Yoli any of the questions that come through the chat or the Q&A. Sorry. Thank you so much. I hope this was super helpful. I know I got some great tips out of it, managing my own stress and fatigue.
It's not easy to do, let me tell you. I just switched over to the chat too. Lots of chats. Thank you all for your comments. You are so welcome. I hope this was helpful for you. Feel free to add any questions in the chat. I'll stop the share actually, because then you can hop on and show your beautiful faces on camera if you'd like. I'd love to see you all. Got some cute pictures here though. Thank you all so much for your comments.
Okay, we have one question. It says, I recently wrote out some long-term goals, and I'm wondering if you think you can overdo the number of goals. When I finally put things on paper, I realized there were a lot in different areas.
I don't know that there's such a thing as too many goals, but you certainly can do buckets of goals, right? And that is my approach to life. And when I am goal setting, I've done this even like on my wall. I'll put like professional goals, cancer kinship goals. Then I have health and wellness goals, or eating, like nutrition goals, family engagement goals, household goals. So that's how I'm able to compartmentalize the different goals that I have and make it a little bit more manageable. And then from there, prioritize. So maybe put a star next to the ones that you really want to focus on now, right? Or ones that you can focus on now. And then go back and revisit your goals or figure out how it contributes to your next goal. So it could be in phases. It's a good question. Hopefully that's helpful.
The next one says, how did you change your nutrition and have your boys adapt to eating healthier? It's a good question.
Yeah. My boys, the reason why I got those 2 boys is because they were living in a very bad environment with their parents or with their father. So their adjustment was it was hard because they weren't used to having structure. But I tried to find ways in which the food that I made was healthy for them, even though it was like kid friendly. And oftentimes I had to put my foot down and say, at least try, just try it one time before you say no. And then sometimes they would surprise themselves. It was not easy though, but I was consistent with my meal making. And every now and then they would have a little cheat. Obviously I wasn't going to expect them to eat as strict as I was eating. But I did incorporate a lot of veggies. The veggies were a big thing. It's like, if you can just tell me a veggie that works for you, we'll make the heck out of it. So my kids really love broccoli, believe it or not. So we ate a lot of broccoli in my home. But yeah, that's a great question. It's a hard thing to do, but you have to be consistent. And I also found that cooking a lot more helped. Like, we didn't go out to eat a lot. We didn't go to fast food. Like, there's so much salt and bad nutrition in fast food. Any other questions?
So there's no other questions in the Q&A. We're 1 minute out.
Okay.
So, we can stay on for a couple more minutes.
Yeah, I do want to read some of the comments here. Will I have access to the chat afterwards? Can I go in there and like save it? Oh wait, here we go. I just saved it.
Yeah.
Fear it wasn't completely removed and will be missed. The Body Keeps the Score. Great book about trauma and body. Thank you for sharing that resource. Feeling like I need to prove myself at work while working during treatment. Yeah, I was actually I was afraid of the look of pity in people's eyes when they saw me without a wig. I wore a wig throughout most of my working life. And then the minute I got home, I would throw that thing off my head.
We did get another question. It says, what would you say to your 31-year-old self now?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, the biggest goal that I have in life is, well, two things. One is that, my faith life is everything, right? So what I would tell my 31-year-old self, that no matter what the outcome is, you're good because of your relationship with the Lord. That's one. The other is you will find joy again and find reasons to smile. Lots and lots of reasons to smile, because I was really heartbroken in my first initial year. I was scared and heartbroken. I can't believe the amount of joy I've experienced in the last 15 years. And even in the middle of crying and fear and all of that, there's still a tremendous amount of joy. So my hope is that you all know that about your lives, that you will find joy, a lot of it, in your lives. Awesome question. Those are tough questions. Like, what would be like the job ones? Like, what advice, what career advice would you give your 19-year-old? So I'm like, I don't know. There's so much. Letting the kids cook will make them work. Yes, I agree with that 100%. Letting your kids cook will make them more curious. You know what else, you guys, and I didn't mention this earlier, growing your own food. Growing your own food at home. I recently took on hydroponic tower garden growing. So I live in a tiny little apartment, and I have a tiny little patio on the second floor, and I'm growing my own food in my own tower garden. And I've seen in different examples of schools that have taken on tower gardening or any kind of gardening, really makes the kids intrigued by the food growth, and they want to taste their own food. So yeah, I agree with letting the kids touch and feel and be a part of it is a really good advice. So I'm going to try the buckets and make current priorities. Yes. I did pick where I am putting them on the wall. Yes. Look at them every day. I love it. I was just diagnosed last month, 30-year-old, so I can relate so much to you. Yeah. Honestly, you guys, I think that it sounds, I'm sure people have said this before. Honestly, cancer has been the best thing that's ever happened in my life. That's probably another thing I would tell my 31-year-old self. I've learned so much and I've grown so much, and it became the biggest filter. I did lose friends, or people didn't come back the way they used to be. It's totally fine. I know who my people are now. I can count them one hand, and really grateful for what I have. There's a tremendous amount of gratitude I have in my heart every day. In the chat, such great comments. I would love to support other single moms with metastatic breast cancer. Yes, get together. Hopefully you all get a chance to engage more during the conference today, and get out of your comfort zone and introduce yourselves. Yes, it's liberating in a sense to go through it and be on the other side. Yes. I agree. Cancer and having chronic illness is such a needed connection. So many folks ask why I continue leading my Girl Scout troops through chemo and surgery. I felt like I needed that joy and normalcy as much as them. Yep, I agree. Created a group from YSC chat in February 22. 6 and 7 of us still talk almost every day. I love that. So cool.
We got another question. It says, my best friend has only reached out since my diagnosis because she doesn't know what to say to me. No contact or response at all. It hurts. Any advice?
I would say there's a level of acceptance that I went through in realizing that people weren't, it was an act of self-preservation on her part, right? And that realize that they're not doing it to hurt you purposefully, but they don't want to say the wrong thing or hurt you even more. So in a way, it's like we have to have more, like, have compassion for them or understand where they're coming from. But it is so hurtful. Like, I went through it to hurt my feelings a lot. It's the matter of giving them space. Whether or not they choose to come back full circle, it's on them. The way that I was able to live with it is just accept the fact that it's painful for them too. And I don't know if that's very helpful or not, but the more you resist it or wonder, or I'm like, I would never do that. We don't know where they're coming from or why. Maybe they have a deeper reason why they're scared or don't know what to say. Yeah, it's a hard call, but accepting it, just be okay with it is what really helped me. Can't figure them out. And honestly, I didn't have the energy to try to figure out why they weren't coming and helping and supporting. It's like, all right, well, I got a bigger fish to fry right now. Can those relationships be repaired though? I think they can. And I think it takes a lot of honest conversation. And just be honest and share when you get to a point where if you can have that conversation and say, well, it really did hurt my feelings, and I'm just curious why you didn't come around, or and just see how they talk about it. I also got to a place where I try not to judge, because I did get to a point where I was really judgy at first. I make assumptions and have unrealistic expectations of people. So when I let go of expectations, I'm like, people are going to show up the way they show up, and just accept the fact that that's how they're showing up for me right now, and it is what it is, and then moving on really helped me a lot. But it is hurtful. Good question. Any others?
No other questions.
Okay, Elizabeth's hair in this photo, by the way, is just darling. All right. Well, I think we're good. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we're great. This was great. Thank you so much, Yoli. Oh my gosh. And it was so lovely to meet you.
Yeah, same here. Feel free to reach out anytime.